Hey everyone, and welcome back to Talk Tickers. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Uber's Q4 2024 earnings call.
Really fascinating stuff. Looking at how they're not just, keeping pace with the current demands, but really kind of strategically positioning themselves for the future of transportation as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot to unpack here, so let's just jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
First off, Uber really crushed it this quarter.
Really did.
Their gross bookings surged 21% year over year.
Wow.
Which exceeded even their own pretty optimistic projections.
Yeah, they were bullish, and they even beat that.
And on top of that, their multi-product use hit an all-time high of 37%.
Huge.
So that means over a third of Uber users are now taking advantage of more than just rides.
That's right. And that's a key indicator of their, successful diversification strategy that they've been pursuing.
Right.
They're not just a ride-hailing app anymore. They've evolved into this multifaceted transportation and delivery platform. And their Uber One membership program is a prime example of that success. Yeah.
It's exploded to 30 million members, a whopping 60% increase from last year.
I mean, clearly things are looking really good for Uber.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little deeper into some of these highlights.
Okay.
What exactly fueled this incredible growth spurt?
Well, it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
Product innovation across their platform played a major role, particularly the success of their Uber One membership, and also their strategic expansion into less densely populated areas.
Now, that expansion into those less dense areas is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
What's the strategy there? Is it just about, tapping into these new markets, or is there something more to it?
It's definitely about expanding their reach, but it's also about recognizing the changing landscape of transportation needs.
Right.
People in those areas are looking for reliable, convenient options, and Uber is stepping in to fill that gap.
They're targeting these areas with supply incentives to attract drivers. They're opening up new locations and even tailoring their product features to better suit the needs of these regions.
Interesting.
So it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. They're really thinking about how to tailor their services to different markets.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they're looking beyond the big cities for growth opportunities.
Absolutely.
And this ties back to what we mentioned earlier about multi-product use.
Right.
37% of their users are now engaging with more than just one Uber service.
Exactly. That number really speaks volumes about Uber's evolution. They're catering to a much wider range of consumer needs now.
Yeah.
You can use the Uber app not just for rides, but for deliveries, grocery shopping, even hailing traditional taxis.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know about the taxi thing.
Yeah, it's all about convenience, right? Having
Right.
everything you need in one place.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So speaking of convenience, let's talk about Uber. One,
Yeah.
30 million members is no small feat.
No, it's not.
What's driving this phenomenal growth?
It really comes down to the value proposition, plain and simple.
Oh.
Uber One offers discounts on rides and deliveries, which incentivizes users to engage with the platform more frequently. So it creates this win-win for both Uber and its customers, fostering loyalty and generating consistent revenue for the company.
It really does seem like they're hitting all the right notes with that membership program.
Yeah.
But what about their delivery business? I mean,
Well-
are they just maintaining the status quo there, or are they making any significant improvements?
They're definitely not resting on their laurels.
Yeah.
They're actively working to improve their delivery service on multiple fronts.
Okay, so how are they doing that?
Well, they're focused on increasing selection by adding more merchants to their platform. They're enhancing their pricing strategies with things like merchant-funded offers and member discounts. And they're laser focused on improving the overall quality of their delivery service.
So it sounds like they're covering all the bases there.
Yeah, they're really trying to make the delivery experience as seamless and enjoyable as possible.
Good for them. All right. But what about the elephant in the room?
Okay.
Autonomous vehicles.
Right.
Where does Uber stand in this rapidly evolving landscape?
This is where things get really interesting. Uber is positioning itself as a leader in the autonomous vehicle space.
Really?
They're investing heavily in AV supply, forming strategic partnerships with key players like Waymo, and working directly with original equipment manufacturers to secure a robust supply chain for the future.
So they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're going all in on this.
Yeah, they see this as a major part of the future of transportation, and they want to be at the forefront of it.
I can see why, but AVs still face some serious hurdles, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, are they acknowledging those challenges, or are they just blindly charging ahead?
No, Uber is definitely aware of the realities of AV commercialization. They're not naive about the challenges.
Oh.
They recognize the need for clear and comprehensive regulations, the importance of achieving a consistently superhuman safety record, the challenge of developing cost-effective hardware that doesn't break the bank, and the need for efficient on-the-ground operations and a high utilization network.
So that's a lot to grapple with.
It is. It's a complex undertaking with a lot of moving parts.
So even with those challenges, Uber seems pretty optimistic about the future of AVs.
Absolutely. They see themselves as playing a crucial role in this evolving ecosystem, and their actions back that up.
Like their partnership with Waymo, for example.
Exactly. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, tell me more about what they're doing with Waymo.
So they already have a successful program running in Phoenix, and they're about to launch in Austin and Atlanta. These launches will generate tons of valuable data and insights into AV performance and user adoption within the Uber platform.
So it's like they're building the plane while they're flying it, but in a good way?
Exactly. It's a learning process, but a very exciting one.
That's really cool.
Okay.
All right, let's shift gears for a second and talk numbers.
Okay.
What's the financial picture looking like for Uber?
Their Q4 financial performance is very impressive.
Right.
Their EBITDA margin reached 7.8% of gross bookings.
Right.
Which is a 30 basis point increase year over year.
Nice.
Now, for those who aren't fluent in financial jargon, that basically means they're becoming more profitable.
That's good to hear. So what drove that improvement?
Well, it was driven by several factors, including benefits from supply incentives and leverage on operating costs, though partially offset by higher insurance costs.
Yeah, insurance costs seem to be a recurring theme in the transportation industry these days.
They do.
So what's Uber doing to manage those rising costs?
They're taking a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
They're implementing technological innovations to monitor driver behavior and reward safe driving practices, which helps reduce accidents and ultimately lowers insurance premiums. They're also actively engaging in policy discussions to advocate for reforms that could help stabilize insurance rates across the industry.
Right. And they're investing in driver safety programs to minimize accidents and promote responsible driving habits.
So they're being proactive rather than just accepting these rising costs as a given.
Exactly. They're taking control of the situation as much as they can.
I like that. What about their guidance for the next quarter? What are they expecting? They're anticipating continued strong growth, projecting a 17 to 21% increase in gross bookings on a constant currency basis.
Wow. So they're expecting to maintain that momentum.
It seems so. And the good news doesn't stop there. They're also expecting continued profit expansion, which points to a healthy trajectory for the company.
It sounds like Uber is firing on all cylinders.
They are.
They're not just riding the wave, they're actively shaping the future of transportation.
It's an exciting time to be following them, that's for sure.
It really is. But hold on, before we get to our "this is not financial advice" segment,
Okay.
I think we need to pause here and save the rest of this deep dive for part 2.
Agreed. This is a lot to digest, and we want to make sure our listeners can absorb all these insights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
Yes.
And we'll be back soon to continue our exploration of Uber's future.
Sounds good. Welcome back to Talk Tickers.
All right, so if you're just joining us, be sure to catch part 1.
Yeah, definitely.
So you can get the full context of Uber's impressive Q4 performance.
A lot of good stuff in there.
We covered a lot of ground, from their stellar growth to their pretty ambitious plans for autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
But there's still more to explore.
Absolutely.
Today, we're going to go a little bit beyond the surface level and examine some of those strategic decisions that are really shaping Uber's future.
Yeah, that's right. Getting into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. All right, so we left off talking about those autonomous vehicles.
Right.
We touched on the challenges and the partnerships, but what are the specific advantages that Uber sees in this market? Why are they betting so big on AVs?
So Uber believes that, their existing strengths give them a unique edge in the AV game. They have this massive network, already a sophisticated technology platform, and a deep understanding of rider behavior.
Right.
They argue this puts them in a prime position to lead in this rapidly evolving space.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about leveraging what they've already built to integrate AVs seamlessly into their platform.
Precisely. They're not starting from scratch, right? They're building on this strong foundation they already have.
Right.
That gives them a head start in creating a scalable and user-friendly experience for AV adoption.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's talk about something a little less futuristic, but equally important. Insurance costs.
Oh, boy.
They seem to be a pretty persistent challenge for Uber.
Insurance costs have been a real thorn in their side, but they're not shying away from the issue at all. Uber's CEO emphasized that The majority of their recent price increases are directly tied to this rising cost of insurance.
So they're not just arbitrarily raising prices, they're responding to these external pressures.
Yeah, exactly. They're feeling the squeeze just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But are they simply passing those costs on to consumers?
Uh-huh.
Or are they actively trying to mitigate the issue somehow?
They're definitely not sitting back and accepting these rising costs.
Yeah.
They're attacking the issue head-on with a three-pronged approach.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so we've got technology, policy, advocacy, and driver safety initiatives.
All right, break that down for me. What does that three-pronged attack actually look like?
So first, with technology, they're using it to monitor driver behavior in real time and reward safe driving practices, which helps reduce accidents and ultimately lowers those insurance premiums.
Makes sense.
Second, they're engaging in policy discussions to advocate for reforms that could help stabilize insurance rates across the entire industry.
So working on a more systemic level.
Exactly. They're trying to tackle this issue from multiple angles. And third, they're implementing comprehensive driver safety programs to minimize accidents and promote responsible driving habits.
So really trying to get ahead of the problem before it even happens.
That's the idea. Prevention is key.
Yeah, I like their approach here. It's encouraging to see them being so proactive.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
All right.
What does all of this mean for Uber's long-term prospects? Where do they go from here?
Well, it seems like Uber is really playing the long game here. They're not just chasing short-term profits, right?
Right.
They're making strategic investments in technologies and strategies that will really define the future of transportation as a whole.
It's a bold approach, but one that could pay off handsomely if they can execute their vision effectively.
Yeah, for sure. High risk, high reward.
But what are the potential downsides here? What could go wrong with this approach?
Well, there are always risks involved when you're, disrupting an industry and betting big on these emerging technologies.
Of course.
The adoption of autonomous vehicles could be slower than they anticipate. Competition in the AV space is fierce. New players are entering the market all the time.
Right.
And there could be unforeseen regulatory hurdles that could slow down their progress.
It's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors that are outside of their control.
But even with those potential risks, it seems like Uber is in a pretty strong position to navigate this evolving landscape.
I think so. They've shown that they're adaptable and willing to pivot when necessary.
Yeah, they have. Okay, so far we've dissected Uber's earnings call,
Yeah.
explored their strategic moves, and even pondered some what-if scenarios.
It's been a good discussion.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to unpack.
That's right.
In part 3, we'll dig into the specifics of their financial performance and analyze what it all means for investors.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned for more insights from Talk Tickers.
And we are back for the final part of our Uber deep dive.
The grand finale.
Yeah, so if you've missed parts 1 and 2, definitely go back and check those out.
A lot of good stuff. Yeah, we've been through a lot. We've talked about their impressive growth, their diversification, their bold moves into the autonomous vehicle space.
I mean, it's been quite a ride.
It really has.
No pun intended.
We've seen how Uber is not just keeping up with the changing landscape of transportation, but they're really actively trying to shape it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not just passengers, they're in the driver's seat.
And in this final part, we're going to zero in on the heart of it all, their financial performance.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
All right, let's crunch some numbers. Their Q4 EBITDA margin came in at a solid 7.8% of gross bookings,
Not bad.
up 30 basis points year over year.
Solid improvement.
And for those who aren't fluent in financial jargon like myself,
Sure.
that basically means they're becoming more profitable.
That's the gist of it, yeah. Their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization are growing as a percentage of their overall bookings.
That's good to hear. So what drove that improvement?
Well, it was driven by a few smarter management of their supply incentives. Think of it like optimizing those driver bonuses to get more drivers where they're needed.
Makes sense.
And also, they're leveraging their operating costs more effectively.
Okay, so running a tighter ship.
Exactly, becoming more efficient.
We've talked about those pesky insurance costs quite a bit, though.
Oh, yeah, those haven't gone away.
Did those have any impact on their profitability?
They did. They acknowledged that those higher insurance costs were a drag on their margins. But they're actively trying to address that through technology policy work and driver safety programs.
Okay, so not just accepting it as an unavoidable expense.
Yeah.
They're taking concrete steps to mitigate that impact.
Absolutely. They're not just going to sit back and watch their margins get eaten away.
And their Q1 2025 guidance reflect this confidence in managing these challenges while they continue to grow.
Exactly.
They're projecting another strong quarter with gross bookings expected to rise 17 to 21% on a constant currency basis.
That's huge.
It is impressive they're expecting to maintain that momentum.
And the good news doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. They're also forecasting ongoing profit expansion.
Wow.
So signaling a healthy and sustainable trajectory for the company.
Okay, so for our listeners who are investors or thinking about becoming investors, what's the key takeaway here? What should they be paying attention to when it comes to Uber?
I think the main takeaway is that Uber is executing its strategy effectively.
Okay.
They're growing their core businesses, they're diversifying their revenue streams, and they're making those strategic investments in future technologies that could really redefine transportation.
They're not just adapting to change, they're driving it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
However, it's important for investors to remember that Uber operates in a very dynamic and competitive environment.
Oh, for sure.
This world of transportation is constantly evolving, so there are inherent risks and uncertainties to consider.
Always got to keep that in mind.
Right. It's never a guaranteed win, but they seem to be playing their cards pretty well.
Yeah, they're making smart moves.
Okay, so overall, Uber's Q4 performance and their forward-looking guidance paint a pretty optimistic picture.
It does.
It's definitely a company to watch.
Keep an eye on them.
All right, so we've analyzed their growth, their strategy, their financials.
Covered it all.
But before we wrap up, let's have some fun with our This Is Not Financial Advice segment,
My favorite part.
where we throw out a wild yet plausible trade idea.
Let's get crazy.
All right, so imagine that Uber's autonomous vehicle efforts are so successful
Okay.
that they decide to create a whole new business model, Uber City.
Uber City. I like it.
Picture a dedicated, fully autonomous ride-hailing network within a major city, kind of like a miniature self-driving public transportation system.
So instead of just integrating AVs into their existing platform, they create a separate exclusive service.
Exactly. Imagine a city where you don't need to own a car. You just summon an autonomous Uber through the app, and it whisks you away to your destination, seamlessly navigating the urban jungle.
Wow, that sounds pretty futuristic.
It does, right? And for Uber, it could be a massive revenue generator.
I can see that.
They could potentially partner with city governments, real estate developers, even public transportation systems to create a whole new ecosystem for urban transportation.
That's a bold vision.
It is, but of course there are hurdles to consider.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The regulatory landscape for autonomous vehicles is still evolving. Public acceptance might take time, and the cost of building and maintaining a dedicated AV fleet for an entire city would be astronomical.
Yeah, those are some major challenges.
They are, but it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility.
Oh, true.
And if Uber pulls it off, it could completely transform urban living as we know it.
I mean, that's a game changer.
Right. So there you have it, our wild but plausible trade idea.
Uber City, sign me up.
All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of our deep dive into Uber's Q4 2024 earnings call.
It's been a pleasure.
It really has. We hope you found this exploration insightful and maybe even a little entertaining.
And hopefully you learned a thing or two along the way.
And remember, this is not financial advice.
Never.
Do your own research, make informed decisions, and always invest responsibly.
Be smart out there.
All right, until next time, thanks for tuning in to Talk Tickers.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.